welcome everybody. We're going to call the meeting to order, even though we do not have a quorum at this point. When it looks like we have a quorum, we'll pause and take the roll call at that point. I guess what we'll try to do is we'll try to go through some stuff that we do not need a quorum to present. Let's go down to, none of the presenters are here yet, so we'll go down to boards and task force. Do we have anyone from solid waste? Beltline tax allocation? Citizen review board? Code enforcement commission? Ethics board, Keep Atlanta Beautiful.
I don't have anything.
License review board. Infrastructure stakeholders committee. Invest Atlanta. Okay. Let's go down to committee reports. CDHR, Committee on Council.
Good morning, Terry Ross, NPUT, Chair of Committee on Council. We met this morning at 9 a.m. and we came up with a couple of things. John, you're here. We wanted to formally request the statistics or the attendance of the various NPUs around the city for 2018. I'm sorry. Okay. Can you guys provide something like that, John?
So, all the NPUs A through Z?
Yes, A through Z. Yes.
Yeah, we should have all those on our server.
Okay.
Unless we don't have the conjunction share.
You should have them all on your server.
We should have each month. Whatever month we don't have, we'll try to get that.
Okay, but there is something that you can provide me then?
Yeah.
Okay, so should I'll put it in writing, I'll send it to you?
Yeah, send me an email.
Okay, I sure will. Okay.
Excuse me, Terry.
Yes.
Do you want to ask for a date for delivery?
By next Friday, Jeff? I'll
Whenever you can give me that email.
I'll get it to you in writing on Monday.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Well, it's a matter of record, even not in writing. If he asks and states a date and time, it would still be a matter of record. And he's just following up as a reminder with the email.
Right.
So it is a formal request.
Right, I make it a formal request now. Yes.
You have a date set?
By Friday of next week.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Is that doable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, John.
No worries.
Okay. Then the next item, Committee on Council came up with a proposed bylaw amendment, which we'll be sending that to you, Ola, proposing an amendment to broaden the pool for standing in ad hoc committee chairs. Basically, the amendment that the committee proposes is to allow anyone who has served as a past APAB standing or ad hoc committee chair be allowed to chair a standing or ad hoc committee, and that would include the pool of past APAB presidents.
Excuse me, Terry. That would have to go through bylaws because that is not what the bylaws say. So we can have
That's actually what I said, Eric. We're going to send it to Ola. We're just letting you guys know what's coming out of committee.
Why is it going to Ola?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, not Ola, the bylaws committee. It's going to the bylaws committee, that's you. Ola is nominating committee, is that right?
Well, I'm working with someone else that's on the
Okay, okay, all right, so yeah, so we will get that to you, Eric. Steve Carr is actually preparing that proposed amendment,
Okay.
and he will get it to you in writing.
Okay. And I'll tell you in advance, I'm going to refer that to executive committee.
Oh, no, bylaws committee.
No, that should actually be considered a bylaws committee and go to the executive committee with all the other amendments. That would be
As
proper
the chair,
procedure.
I'm just giving you advance warning. I will review it, I will make my recommendations, and I will bring it before the executive committee.
Along with the other recommendations, correct?
Oh,
Okay, all right, that works. Yeah, that works. Okay, and then the final item from Committee on Council is that the executive committee get and prepare a card for the family of Ivy Young, offering best get well, best wishes on behalf of the APAB body. I don't know if we have to do a resolution or a motion here or whatever, but we're saying this body should acknowledge the health concerns of Ivy Young and his family.
Total agreement. I don't think Jennifer would have any problem with that. If you would, just send her an email saying that in general, that's what the body would like to do, and I think we would all follow through with that. I know I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, so does it have to go for a vote, or how do we do this?
I don't think so. But if it does, when we get a quorum, we can definitely vote on that. As soon as we get a quorum, if that's something I would interrupt the agenda for.
Okay. All right, and that concludes the report for the Committee on Council for October 20th. Thank you.
Okay, transportation, that is me. I have not officially taken on those duties, but I will try to get caught up to speed on that and notify the body of our first meeting. I guess I really have nothing to report, that's what I'm saying, because I'm not officially in. Education, public engagement, financial report, utilities, public safety. Okay, I'm going to go back to Jim Martin, once he gets settled. I think he covers about 3 or 4 of these items.
Sorry, just take them for a year.
Take your time. Cover them in the order that you like, Jim.
Okay, let's see. So, the ad hoc committee on conflict resolution met twice since APAP last met, and you have the minutes from both those meetings and the preliminary recommendations of the ad hoc committee stapled to your agendas. So, please look those over. I think we are ready to have Council President Moore come back to our executive committee meeting to discuss next steps on that. And after that, we may want to meet in ad hoc committee again, depending on where we see this going next. Let's see, CHR and zoning and land use met on the 8th of October. I was the only person present at both of those meetings. I discussed various things with myself, including the village project, which, as you may know, was scheduled for a special city council meeting next Wednesday. That was canceled, and it's unclear when it's going to come back again, but whatever the current proposal is so super secret that we don't know about it. I also discussed with myself an issue that I have recently noticed, which is that there are many parcels in the city that don't have street addresses associated with them, but there are many systems in the city that rely on street addresses to identify parcels. So if, for example, you were to phone in a zoning complaint, they would say, what's the street address? You'd say, well, it's this parcel on this corner has no street address, or the street address is 0, which quite a few parcels also have assigned to them. And that then makes it essentially impossible for the inspectors to come out and find that property. And so it seemed to me that we have an opportunity there to make a resolution to the city, because this is all within the GIS system, and it's something that can be fixed by a talented programmer. So I was hoping Jack would be here because he is a talented programmer. But I will reach out to him about that. And our next meeting of both CDHR and zoning and land use will be on the 12th of November, which is the second Monday of the month, at Chinchin Restaurant, 1715 Halmel Road. CDHR meets first at 7, and then zoning and land use meets at 7:45. That's all I have.
What was the date again?
I believe it is the 12th, the second Monday.
Okay. Oh, okay. Bill, are you coming back?
I am. I have
Okay.
an emergency call. I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay, in the interim, I would like to, jump to comments. You take us from community comments? Okay, Mr. Howard.
Greetings to you and greetings to folks that are here, and special greetings to you folks watching on channel 26 or by way of a public access channel, watching APAB in action. I think what I want to do is combine my comment and then also the next line below where it talks about good news at NPUs. So the good news at NPUR is that Ricardo Jacobs and Antonita Robinson have gone to family court and got a 12-month restraining order to keep Ben Howard 200 yards away from them. So consequently, that means that my rights to be at an NPUR meeting are being undercut by an effort that has involved the Superior Court, the YMCA family, the Andrew and Walter Young family YMCA on Campbellton Road, and a number of others. And I say that's good news because there's a lot of things that are going to be aired in the process.
Next.
Morning everyone, Rashid Muhammad, NPUM. I just wanted to say that last month I came up and talked about the pay report for Atlanta Police. And I don't know if everyone knows, but in the interim between the last meeting and this meeting, the city did vote to increase the salaries for APD, very much in line with what was in that report. I think that's good news. However, I do want to emphasize that there's still some holding of accountability here. You know, I think the city, the citizenry, our tax dollars, we've done our part here. We need to expect more in return. That's all.
You have much influence.
Good morning, my name is Kyle Kessler. I'm also a resident of NPUM, but I'm here this morning to represent the Center for Civic Innovation. We are a 4-year-old nonprofit that's committed to helping citizens, just as yourselves and just as myself, shape the future of our city. I left out on the front table a piece of paper. We are launching an NPU project. It is a research audit project, evaluation project to come up with recommendations. I think what we have been hearing for ages has been that there are challenges with the NPU system, but also great opportunities, and we want to make sure that we're able to take advantage of the public forums and opportunities that we have, and deal with any sort of challenges and make sure we're up to date with the system. There have not been any significant changes since 1974 when the NPU system first started got off the ground. We are not living in 1974 anymore. So whether it's sort of expectations have changed, but also technology has changed, the city has also evolved in that time, so we're going to make sure that we're up to date with that. So far, we have met with each of the city council members' offices. The only council member we have not met with in person was Ivor Young. But we have met with each of their offices and sort of gone over what we're intending to do over the next year plus. We are now starting to meet with each of the NPU leaders. If you're an NPU chair, you should have received an email from me this past week. We're going to try to meet on November the 29th. We'll send out more information to the chairs as we sort of nail that down. We want to make sure we're getting lots of input and feedback from neighborhood leaders. We'll also be reaching out to people who are not involved in the NPU system at all, have no idea what the NPU system is, have no idea what the letters stand for. But to make sure that we're actually being representative of citizens across the city, and across all geographies, and make sure that we are representative, and that the recommendations that eventually come out of the NPU system have weight behind in that council, because it's not just a few people that happen to be in a particular room on a particular day, but we're having a robust public discourse throughout the whole process. We've also met with John McKinley and other folks at the city and the planning department to discuss it. We've met with Commissioner King, with Erica Pines. We want to make sure that we're listening to them as well, the folks who are sort of doing the daily grind and making sure that the agendas get published and information comes out, that special requests for attendance records can come through as well. We likewise have requested some of that information so we can do a deeper dive on research. We've done a lot of historical analysis. We have a lot more to do, but I wanted to go ahead and sort of introduce myself and introduce our team. We are looking to hire somebody to sort of directly lead the project. It's going to be a lot of work. There's lots of NPU meetings, lots of neighborhood association meetings, lots of other things that we need to sort of get to. So if you can, visit our website, civicatlanta.org, where you can see more information about what we do as an organization. We do not yet have this particular document published, but I'll try to get that online as soon as possible. But there is a link to the job description for the community engagement manager we're looking to hire to do this full time. So we definitely are committed to the project. We want to get as much buy-in from the broad public as possible. But obviously one of the key stakeholders is APAD, representing each of the NPUs, and then each of the NPUs themselves. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss with anybody afterwards. My email address, if you want to reach out to me directly, is Kyle, K-Y-L-E, at civicatlanta.org. I've got cards for people who are in the room if they want to grab that as well. I'm happy to answer any questions or discuss it later with anybody else after the fact. So, thank you.
Any questions?
Open up for good questions.
I think I know the answer, but point of clarification. There's been an item floating around at the back of the CDHR, City Council CDHR agenda for about 6 months now. It's this process, right? Because people have asked me about that. Requesting that Armstrong about the review process for the NPU system.
So the first item on the CDHS committee's goals and objectives for this year is to do an NPU system review. We are not working on behalf of the city, of council, anybody else. We have been working on this for a while. I think the stars to a certain degree have aligned. If you're familiar with many other sort of planning documents that the city's produced, the city design, the Resilient Atlanta plan, the upcoming or sort of existing now House ATL recommendations, everybody or lots of people seem to understand there's issues and challenges with NPU. We need to review it. We need to sort of be prepared for an overhaul of some kind, whether that's an extensive overhaul or just sort of minor tweaks to make the system work. So we've been in communication with Chairman Archibald, other folks, but we are not, and we reported to them. There was an email that I had sent to give them an update on our process. We do not see ourselves as being beholden to the council, but we definitely want to help them if they are also interested in reviewing the NPU system.
I guess what I'm getting at, this is the one and only review of the NPU system that you're aware of, right?
I don't know of anybody else who's working on it to the same extent that we are. So we are happy. Well, yes, as was just mentioned behind me, there have been ongoing sort of studies with professors at Georgia State University. We are familiar with other sort of things that sort of come along the way. But we are trying to work with each of those folks. We've had conversations with folks at GSU to make sure we're pulling together as much information as possible. I don't know that we can accomplish it all, but rather than everybody sort of trying to do their own thing, if we can be a sort of clearinghouse and a repository and convener, then we're happy to do that as well.
Steve? Oh, please stay at the mic. Kyle?
I want to ask you to repeat more than once your email address so that anybody can email information to you. We have a lot of what you might call newbies, new people here in Ohio. They don't know what these acronyms mean, what an NPU is, what an APAB is, what a GSU is, what a CCI is. And I go on and on and on through the whole alphabet. But I would really appreciate is that if somebody does, and I know it's a hard habit to break, if somebody does want to use an acronym, is that they would explain it. Now, I would assume that everybody in the room knows what acronyms we're referring to. But I'll bet you there's people out there in, what do you call it, TV land?
Streaming line.
Yeah, so please repeat contact information. Over and over.
All right, so my contact information, once again, Kyle, K-Y-L-E, at civicatlanta.org. So CIVICATLANTA.org. Again, Kyle at civicatlanta.org. And for a third time, Kyle at civicatlanta.org. I apologize if I gave any acronyms that I did not explain. Center for Civic Innovation, we often sort of colloquially go by CCI. But as much as possible. And on this document, sort of spelled out Center for Civic Innovation. One of the things that we are working on, and I think we also explain what NPU means as well on here, Neighborhood Planning Unit. We are preparing an NPU 101. As just as was mentioned, there are plenty of folks that have no clue what that letters mean. We had an intern working with us over the summer who was a Fulbright scholar, I think, from Russia. She had no clue what the term 101 meant either, so bringing her up to speed on sort of all these acronyms and sort of shortenings of phrase that we use. But we want to make sure that folks are educated on the system, that they know the difference between their neighborhood association, their neighborhood planning unit, other business and civic associations exist, APAB, the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, the ZRB, the BZA, all the other sort of acronyms that are out there as well. So Zoning Review Board, Board of Zoning Appeals, or adjustments. So we are looking to make sure that folks are educated and aware of those various organizations, the structures that exist, all their opportunities for public engagement, for comment, for review. So if I apologize once again if I was not as descriptive as I need to be, but that is something that is included in the document that we're trying to make sure that folks understand how they can fit in across the process, and there's no barrier of entry based upon just general lack of knowledge about what all those sort of terms and jargons are. We're also preparing a map so that everybody can easily see where their various neighborhood planning units meet, what day of the week or day of the month they're meeting on, all that sort of location information, so that the only excuse is that physically somebody can't be there, they've got some other business to attend to, not that they didn't know what was happening, they didn't know where it was happening, they didn't know what was on the agenda. We're trying to make sure that that information can get out so we get a representative population sample as we can. But it's not just reserved for folks that happen to be in the know on that information.
Okay, next.
Good morning. Ann Robinson, NPR Chair. I just want to apologize for my late arrival and let you know we were here and represented my designee, Alfred White. It's his birthday today, so I told him I'd attend the meeting instead.
Okay,
Thank you.
I have one quick question. In your scope, are you looking at redrawing the lines of the NPUs as part of your scope?
We are not looking at, we have no foregone conclusions. We will be taking the research we do as well as the interviews, conversations we have. We'll do data analysis to see if that might be a recommendation. But at this point, we're not going to say that needs to be done, but that is obviously one of the things that should at least be considered as part of an analysis. When the system was started in 1974, what were the populations of each of the NPUs? How has the city sort of evolved and changed over time? We've added another NPU, NPUQ. So I think there's lots of stuff that I think through the historical documentation as to how we arrived at where we are now, and then doing analysis to see where folks are, the concerns people have. Do we have too many? Are there too few? Are they Have neighborhood boundaries shifted over time and maybe the NPU system needs to adjust? I think we're interested in those conversations, but at this point, we're not going to say that we're going to do an analysis to say they need to be changed.
Okay, specifically, you mentioned NPUQ, which is my home NPU.
Yep.
And the numbers that are represented there are far less than, I think, any other NPU there. There also is no business district, it's just residents. So if I may slightly influence, please take a look at that.
Yeah, I mean, as we analyze that, we understand that that's the current existing condition as well. We're trying to go back and review sort of how that decision to create an NPUQ was made. It does not seem to have been a robust sort of public process, but I don't think the legislation and policy that's currently in place requires that to happen anyway. So I think there are many other cities that we're looking at. Lots of them have defined policies regarding the geographies and how those might shift and adjust over time. Not that we have to adopt those wholesale, but we can understand the implications of some of these decisions that have been made and whether we need to do a correction or not. Do we need to go back to 24? Does it make sense to switch to 12? Who knows what we need to do? I think just as a constituent or as a representative of that NPU, we definitely want to hear those concerns and ideas. It also would seem to be a challenge that it's an NPU that is geographically separated from itself. It's not contiguous, at least not until other changes happen to the city boundaries. So I think we will take your feedback into consideration. It's now obviously on public record, but we're not going to necessarily say we, at least until the year-long process is done, that this needs to happen or we recommend something happening with the NPU boundaries.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Oops, we got one more and then we're going to go to Bill for his committee report. Mr. Wilson.
Sorry. Thanks for coming. This is interesting. I've been listening to you, and I'm a little confused about what's generating this. Aside from the fact that it's old, the system, and I was wondering if you could clarify who's your sponsoring organization. I understand that you created a nonprofit, but who precipitated the creation of your nonprofit? And is the sponsoring audience or the sponsoring organization Georgia State? Are you a professor at Georgia State? Are you trying to generate a publishable document? Or, this has happened before that academics, including one of our past presidents who was in the city planning department there, used APAB as a sort of model for certain things he was studying. Could you kind of give a step back from the complexities of all this? Just sort of say an overview. I'm here because somebody decided this needed to happen, that somebody is this, and I'm motivated to do this because I am, and then tell us who you are. Thanks.
All right, once again, my name is Kyle Kessler, downtown resident. I am not an academic, at least by any sort of official decree. I'm an architect by training, was former president of the Atlanta Downtown Neighborhood Association, and an NPU-M's representative to the Special Public Interest 1 Downtown Development Review Committee, so the SPA1 DRC. The nonprofit that I work for, the Center for Civic Innovation, as I mentioned before, is 4 years old. Grew out of not my research, but there was our executive director and founder, Rohit Malhotra, who, I don't have his full biography here, but was working on his graduate sort of research paper with the city of Atlanta on how to improve cities through various sort of means. So we are looking to do that in various ways. The 3 ways we've sort of identified is to make sure that people have better information. So I personally, as well as other folks on our team, file open records requests. We hold public meetings and discourses on various things that are happening in the city. We have an event this coming Tuesday, not to do a plug, on the ballot questions that are on the ballot right now or in November, particularly focusing on the ones that are affecting the city of Atlanta residents. So those regarding the Atlanta public school system, affecting potential changes to repeal of the constitutional amendment for the Fulton County Industrial District. We're working on all of that information. Last year, we ran a campaign called Vote ATL or Vote Local, which was to make sure not that you knew who to vote for, but that each of the levels of representation we have in the city council, the council president, the mayor, that folks knew what their job descriptions were, that you did not come into the voting booth trying to vote for a mayor based upon her education, her platform for education, because we have a separate board of education and they choose the superintendent. So we try to do a lot of just public information and advocacy regarding those sorts of needs. We also want to make sure that folks that have good ideas, whether they're in this room or elsewhere across the city, have the resources and tools they need to actually make change happen. So we provide trainings and resources specifically for them, as well as some level of funding. And those funding streams vary based upon a particular program. For food entrepreneurs, we work with the Food Law Alliance. So to your question about who's sort of funding this initiative, regarding the NPU system, there's not a particular funder identified. It sort of fits under our broader umbrella of what we do. But for the various programs we run, we do have funding streams that come in to provide that resources out to the public. And then the third component of what we do is we want to make sure that folks are actually speaking with and having communication with those decision makers. So we've got the good information to start with. We have good ideas. We want to make sure that through the systems of engagement we have or that we need to have, that there's an opportunity for folks to actually make that impact. And then once we propose those changes, or once the public sort of puts those changes out, we're going to evaluate and test them. And if we're seeing the impacts that we want collectively, then we can sort of further those ideas. If what we propose doesn't work out, we want to readily admit that that's a failure or that we identified something incorrectly. We can go back and course correct and change it, rather than just saying this will be the end-all be-all solution and then we just sort of let it sit. So I don't know exactly what the framework for the question on the attendance records, but if the goal of the NPU system or APAB is we want to increase attendance in the NPU system, then we likewise have asked John for that information so we can say currently attendance is this. We will sort of poll the public, including the NPUs. How do you think we can get more people to participate in the NPU system? If that requires more budget for printing materials, if that requires other sort of resources, we want to help equip folks with those resources. We will see if that actually increases attendance. And we might do multiple things. There's 25 NPUs, there might be 25 different solutions, but then we can go back and evaluate and say, this seems to be working better than this one, here's some best practices, here's some other ideas, here's some we might tweak all those variables to get the result we want. And then we can report out and say, in a year, we've increased attendance 50%, whatever that is, and has that hit our target that we were looking for. So hopefully that answers the questions. If not, I'm happy to chat with you afterwards or anything else that comes up.
Okay, one quick point of clarification. The home site to your web is just civicatlanta.org
Correct.
without your name, correct?
Correct. The email address is kyle@civicatlanta.org, but the website is just civicatlanta.org.
Okay, so you can probably get some of the questions answered from there if you care to go to that home site.
Yeah, and I'll stick around after the meeting if anybody asks any questions afterwards. I have nowhere to rush off to, so I'm happy to chat.
Okay, and I thank you very much. I think that was pretty informative. Mr. Boa?
Good morning to all of you. I'm Bill Bozarth. I'm the representative from APAB on the Invest Atlanta board. Been in that position almost 2 years now. My report is very simple. The kinds of things that are coming through on our various efforts to focus, our main two focuses continue to be economic development, that is finding ways to incent companies to actually locate in Atlanta with good jobs. The second thing, of course, is to be part of the solution for the affordable housing challenge that we have here in Atlanta. I tend to be sometimes the only no vote on a lot of things that come through our board, and that's out of a frustration that too often the programs, the money that's available to help the average citizen in Atlanta goes too often to developers or to sources that do not really need the help as opposed to those who do. So an example of that, if you read the paper yesterday, the headline above the fold of the Journal-Constitution was that Fulton County's Development Authority, who is our sort of sister organization that has rights to approve tax abatements in the county, that's one of the tools we have to incent development, they are going to put, I think it's $8 or $9 million worth of tax forgiveness into the refurbishing of Phipps Plaza. And there was a picture in the paper with Robert De Niro and his hard hat out there with the shovel. Phipps Plaza, like any other shopping mall, is suffering the changes that are happening in terms of shopping patterns. And they want to really spend a lot of money to revamp that piece of real estate and create a different type of approach. Our feeling is that if you have to help Phipps Plaza do something like that, you have to help everyone. So this is, again, Fulton County Development Authority, and I don't want to use the platform just to, knock on them, but they are sort of one of the forces that goes on in Atlanta for tax forgiveness through the bond inducement process that sort of, because often when the developers come to us to want to do that, the argument is, well, if we don't do it, Fulton County Development Authority will. So I would hope that one of the things that the citizens of Atlanta can do is focus on what's going on in that area. It's something that goes on under the radar. Fulton County Development Authority does not have a single elected official on it. It's all an appointed board. And again, the deal at Phipps Plaza is an example of one of the tax forgivenesses they've done over the years that I have personal problems with. When those things come to Invest Atlanta, again, I try to steer them away from the help for the prosperous developers and try to do more for those who really need that extra incentive to make something happen. So those are the kinds of things that I deal with. Clearly, the big elephant in the room in terms of what's going on in the city right now is the proposed Gulch project. I don't need to elaborate on what that is politically. The mayor is trying to get the 8 votes that she needs to pass that. I'm personally very concerned that the amount of public subsidy around that product is so great that the amount of public benefit that's coming back is too small in proportion. So I would hope that the council will see the wisdom to pass on this project, but again, that's a battle that's going on every day, and we'll see what happens. That battle needs to be won in the city council, because if it comes to Invest Atlanta, the parts of that project that we would have to approve, I think the mayor's got the votes there to approve. So that's where the battle has to be won. And that's really all I wanted to say. I'm certainly welcome to entertain questions about what we do at Invest Atlanta or any project in particular.
Bill? Did you get a copy of the resolution that we passed, that APAT passed last month about Invest Atlanta and the Fulton County Development Authority?
I did, yes.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, and that's helpful. Thank you.
And I wonder too then, if you could sort of elaborate a little bit on these kind of standard incentive abatement deals as opposed to the Gulch deal. See, it's usually 25% abatement, is it not, of tax obligation over 10 years?
There's a vehicle called a bond incentive that it's a complex deal that gets worked by bond lawyers, and most average persons can't understand it. But the effect of it is that you take the property tax that would have been paid on the project, and in year one, the owners of the property have that property tax reduced to 50% of what it would have been had the abatement not been there. Each year that declines by 5%. The second year it's a 45% abatement, and it goes out for 10 years until finally it comes back to full value. So in fact, you're correct. It comes to an average of 25% property tax forgiveness, usually for business locations, sometimes for apartments. And if we provide that for an apartment, we have a counter demand that the developer provide a certain amount of affordability within that apartment. If we abate it for an office project, we try to make a trade-off that a certain number of good jobs are going to be going into that building and a commitment to that. So we try to have a sort of a horse trading process with the developer to say, if we're going to help you subsidize your project, here's what we want in return. My observation is Fulton County doesn't do much of that. We sometimes have passed projects, to be honest, that I didn't feel met that test either. So that's what a property tax abatement amounts to, a bond structure that allows reduced property tax for a period of 10 years.
So the level of subsidy is 25% over 10 years.
If you average those
In
10
one of
years.
those deals as opposed to the Gulch, which would be 100% over 30
The
years.
Gulch deal is a totally different animal. It's an abatement of property taxes, and it's also a channeling of any sales tax revenue that might occur on the spot into a pot that would go back to subsidize the project. So you're giving up both sales tax and property tax in the case of the Gulch. And again, the numbers vary, 1.6 billion, 1.75 billion. It's an unprecedented amount of public support for any project. I think the public support at Atlantic Station, which held the record until now, is about $250 million roughly. And so this is multiple times more that we're anticipating of giving up property tax revenue. The argument by the advocates of the Gulch, and all of you probably heard this, is that it's not generating any property tax now, so we're really not losing anything by the forgiveness. But the counter argument to that is that the amount of office space and apartment space and retail that would go into the Gulch would suck up all the demand from elsewhere in Midtown and downtown. And what you would have is that you'd have real estate with no tax on it. It would be discouraging development of real estate that would have tax on it. So there is some price to be paid for sure. That's the counter argument to the, I guess the one that the mayor and her allies are making.
Not a question, but
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Rashid
I'm
was
sorry.
in queue, and you're next, I think.
So, okay. I'll return to my microphone and certainly be glad to answer any other questions.
So I don't know if you're privy to this or not, or whether any sort of research has been done on this, but particularly your last comment, I never really heard that retort, because it seems to assume that there's kind of a zero-sum game here, and that if the Gulch development happens, it's going to pull away from other parts of the city. Is there no assumption of growth or anything along those lines? Are we assuming a recession? I'm just curious about what underpins that assumption.
There is a finite amount of demand for both apartments and office space. If this was like a public project, it would be like a, I don't know, convention center or something like that. It would not, I would not be able to make that argument. But clearly, the scope and scale of what's being proposed as part of the Gulch development is huge. I don't have the square foot numbers, but it's like several Peachtree cities, you know, being put in one spot. And there's only so much demand for office space. And, you know, office space doesn't create jobs. Employers create jobs. And if, for instance, we get the Amazon deal, and if you want to envision that the Gulch could be a location perhaps for some of the Amazon real estate, certainly Amazon is not going to come to Atlanta without their own set of demands for property tax forgiveness and other incentives that are often in the mix. So it doesn't really, we could get hit twice if in fact Amazon was the intended tenant of the building. And of course, if Amazon comes, it does change the equation. If going to the heart of your question, we can't predict demand, and certainly we haven't had a downturn in 10 years, and we know that happens, right? So I think crystal ball of predicting what's happened, I'm not any better at that than anyone else.
Ben?
So I did have another question, though, but I can certainly yield to Mr. Howard.
Okay, I guess I'm done. Thank you.
thank you for yielding. I thank you, Mr. Bozarth, for that presentation and for the questions raised by Jimmy Rashid. I think in these few minutes, the public has really gotten some edification about the Gulch that they had not previously received. So I'm really glad that this transpired. Mr. President and members and viewers, I'm going to have to leave because Anthony Robinson and Curtis Clear are here to entrap me into being within 200 yards of them, and so I'll see you sometime when they are not in my presence.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Bill, I did have one quick question for you. It was in regards to the affordability or housing affordability and how that is structured such that at least as I understand it, how it is structured such that the affordable houses or units within the Gulch properties would actually lose their affordability within a matter of years. Could you expound on that better than I was able to explain it?
I'm not the expert on the contents of the 600-page document, which, by the way, is being updated, and we're anticipating the release of a revision of that based on the latest negotiations. But there was a provision in the early version, you're correct, that there was an opt-out of the affordability after 3 years, which of course sort of negates the advantage of providing affordability. You can't provide it for 15 or 20 years, which is the normal commitment. It's not worth that much. So I think because the public has raised concerns about that particular clause and why it was in there, I would hope the next revision will negate that concern. But yes, you're right. There was some language that implied the affordability of the 200 units which were committed in the first phase possibly could expire under certain circumstances after 3 years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Might I ask one more question?
Okay.
It's sort of a deep question, but you had mentioned in response to earlier question about job creation and how this is really a place in which jobs will be housed, not an actual job creation. But if one were to accept at face value the numbers that have been put forward for the number of jobs and that they might actually somehow be creating, in terms of past precedent, how does the cost per job compare?
If you look at the total incentive package of in the billions, I don't have the number, Jim. It's way out of line with anything that's reasonable. We look at what $5,000 and $10,000 of incentive per job sometimes is what we are normally giving. This would be orders of magnitude greater than that.
Okay, we got one more question, and then we're truly going to go to roll call.
It's not even a question, it's just a quick comment about the affordability. I just want to share something with you, Eric. So I'm in NPUM, which is where this development is happening, and the developer did come to our land use meeting not long ago. I asked, now this is from the developer, so there's an obvious spin on this, but when I first moved downtown, I lived in a building that had affordable housing. The building went into receivership. It was rebought by the original developer for nickels on the dollar and turned into condos, and there was no affordability whatsoever. And I asked them about whether that sort of situation was possible with these developments in the Gulch. Their response was that whatever affordability mandates are there are actually attached to the ground, and that they're in the ground for 99 years. So according to them, if they build these developments that have these affordable components, those things are basically there, and there's no way to get out of them, even if they sell them. Observation.
That would be something we need to probably get verified at some point. Okay.
I understand that if I think the total number of proposed dwelling units in the thing is in the tens of thousands, certainly in the thousands. And we have to recognize that we have a tremendous challenge in the city, that it's becoming more and more difficult for people who even make $80,000 or $90,000, $100,000 to afford the rents. They're having to live outside the city. That's beyond the problem with legacy residents who are below the average mean income. So even 200 units, we have to sort of say is a drop in the bucket. Even if we're able to preserve them for 99 years, it's not a significant impact on the overall challenge we have in this city. We've seen in New York and San Francisco where you have to be earning well into six figures in order to live in the city. So it's a drop in the bucket. We have a big challenge, and we have to find solutions that are much more far-reaching than 200 here and 200 there.
Okay,
And I live with that challenge every day. I don't have the answer, but that's what we're faced with.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Steve, just because it's you, we're going to allow you to speak.
Thank you. And to follow up with what Rashid Mohammed has said, I went to a recent East Atlanta Community Association meeting. Councilmember Madeline Archibald spoke. She is also the chair of Council's Community Development Human Services Committee, which has purview over a lot of the Gulch. And I asked her, well, she mentioned, before I tell you what I asked her, she said she and some other people had a interesting meeting with not Tony Rensler, but the other Rensler and his company, CIM. And there were some additional things that were verbalized. That's the key word. And I followed up with that by asking her, was this meeting tape recorded or is anything in writing? Of course not. So is it worth non-paper, it's non-written on?
Thanks, Steve. Okay, at this point, we're going to try to go back to the agenda, and we're going to see if we have a quorum.
Good morning. NPUA, no representation. NPUB, Richard Rao, delegate. John Muzzy, alternate.
Here.
NPUC, excuse me. Delegate, no representation. Alternate is Zach Goldberg. NPUD, delegate Jill Martin. Alternate Michelle Moore.
Melissa Moore.
We're both here.
Okay. NPUE, delegate James Snyder, alternate Brian Harris. NPUF, Debbie Skaczynski, delegate. NPUG, Ola Reynolds, delegate, Keith Sharp, alternate.
President.
NPUH, Barbara Hubbard, delegate. Charles Shelton, alternate. NPUI, Jennifer Freeman, delegate. Eunice Glover, alternate.
Present.
Okay, NPUJ, Benjamin Dickerson, delegate.
Here.
Okay. NPUK, Chad Smith, delegate. Tara Mitchell, alternate. NPUL, Bob Jones, delegate. Maurice White, alternate. NPUM, Michelle Schreiner, delegate. Rashid Muhammad, alternate. NPUN, Amy Stout, delegate. Kathy Woodland, alternate. NPUO, Mark Tanner, delegate. Gary Long, alternate. NPUP, Rasheen Hunter, delegate. Hope Hoffman, alternate. NPUQ, David Gedich Smith, delegate. Eric Toomer, alternate.
Present.
NPUR, Alfred White, delegate. Harold Hardnett, alternate.
Anthony Robinson, I'm actually the delegate, Mr. White is the alternate.
Okay, thank you. NPUS, Nick Ness, delegate. Chris Brown, alternate. NPUT, Terry Ross, delegate.
Yeah, we're both here.
Okay. NPUV, Stephanie Flowers, delegate. Columbus Ward, alternate.
Columbus Ward, delegate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, NPUW, Jack Brunler, delegate. Steve Carr, alternate.
We're here.
NPUK, Michael Hopkins, delegate. Ruben Burney, alternate. NPUY, Dana Scott, delegate. Chris McCord, alternate. NPUZ, Ann Phillips, delegate. Sharita Grant, alternate.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. We're going to pick up on the top of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Abstentions? Okay, agenda is adopted.
make a motion that we approve the minutes of our last meeting.
Second.
So moved.
It has been seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Minutes are approved. Okay, we're, at this point, we're going to skip right down to
Judge Curley.
our Chief Judge of the Magistrate Court, Judge Cassandra Kirk.
Good morning. I do have a presentation. I don't know if it's been forwarded to you. Thank you.
I'd like to say welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Good morning. I understand that I have a very strict time limit. I intend to comply with that time limit. First off, thank you all for having me. This is my first opportunity to present before this board. I have been to several of the NPVs separately, and I am glad to see many of you all here and glad to be able to present. As has been mentioned, my name is Cassandra Kirk. I am the Chief Magistrate Judge here in Fulton County, and as taxpayers of Fulton County, I'm presenting to you all, understanding that this is the city of Atlanta. All right, I'll do it. And so the interesting thing about the magistrate court is, first and foremost, that these courts are not new. These were established back in 1983. In Fulton County, what has been unique is that we have had a task force that was created back in 2012 that made it required that a separate magistrate court exist, as it does in all of the 159 counties. As a result of that, local legislation was passed through our Fulton delegation in 2013 and 14, which resulted in my position being created as an elected position throughout Fulton County. However, the first person for the job was appointed by the governor, and that occurred in December of 2014, and that is when I took office in this role. What is also unique and exciting for me is that in May of this year, this is the first time ever that the Fulton County Magistrate Court position was ever elected in Fulton County, and thanks to the overwhelming support of Fulton County, I am returning in that role. But you will know that unlike every other chief judge in some designation, I am chief for my 4 years. There will not be another chief until my term is up. So that is the difference between some of the other courts. When we talk about magistrate court, what we talk about is this court is we do triage. People like to think of magistrate court as being the people's court. And in truth, that is what we are. Our overview, giving you a little overview, we have civil as well as criminal jurisdiction. Civil as well as criminal jurisdiction, we operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And we have services at the North Annex, the South Annex, the Central Annex, as well as at the jail. In terms of judges, I've mentioned we have 1 chief judge, we have 8 full-time magistrates, and then we have 22 part-time magistrates, all of which are appointed by me with the approval of both the state and superior court. I will say, because I know that this is being televised, that right now we are accepting applications. Everyone that has a term now actually ends December 31, 2018, and we are accepting applications to start with a new crop of judges. Some of those will continue, some of them will not. So if you have friends that are interested in being part-time magistrates, full-time magistrates, now is the time to apply. We will interview November 1 and 2, applications due October 23rd. In terms of our civil jurisdiction, we had civil cases less than 15,000. Those are what's indicated as small claims cases. We also handle garnishment actions, landlord-tenant cases, and abandoned motor vehicle cases. These are our civil cases. On the criminal side, this is where we operate 24/7, 365. We have weeks, and then we also do preliminary hearings. The other stuff that we do is also provide judicial assistance for both our state and superior courts. We do weddings free of charge. We occasionally provide judicial assistance for other magistrate courts. For instance, if they have a person that all of their bench has to be recused, we make ourselves available, and they do the same for us. And we provide truly triage for the justice system. And so what that looks like is, after we do search and arrest warrants, after we do first appearance hearing, where those cases get to the next hearing is very crucial, and that's what the magistrate court helps provide. Our goal is our commitment to excellence in providing fair and accessible, timely resolution of our cases, civil and criminal, within our jurisdiction, and to do that, we use innovation and efficiency. I was asked to talk briefly about some of the things that we have accomplished. I do have our key accomplishments since I have taken office. So that's 15, 16, and 17. I will not read them. They are available to you. I think what's important for you all as residents of Fulton County is to look at what it is, how Fulton County compares to the other jurisdictions. You will notice that these numbers are 2016 numbers. These are the last numbers reported by the Administrative Office of the Court, which is the caseload reporting agency to which all jurisdictions provide their information and their numbers. You will see that the Fulton County Magistrate Court, at our 2016 numbers reported statewide, we handled 84,000 matters. Over 84,000 matters. What's also important is if you look at our number of judges versus everyone else's number of judges and our number of support staff. I'm sorry, go back one. And so our support staff, at this point, I mentioned I am the chief judge, I am also the court administrator. I do now have a part-time person serving as a deputy court administrator, and I gave up my judicial assistant in order to have that person. So I have 0.5 support staff. Our court does 84,000 pieces of business. And so we are really treading water. I understood that what was of interest to this body was our budget and how we get here. A lot of the staff for Fulton County Magistrate Court is judicial staff. When I came in 2015, I realized that I could not do clerking with 39 people because that's what had been allocated to me. I couldn't do a clerk's office with 39 people. At that point, I asked the elected clerk of Superior Court, who was Kathleen Tina Robinson, to assist, and I appointed her to be our clerk in Magistrate Court. So that is how we are barely making it here in Magistrate Court. I wanted to point out to you all also the budgets. This is the adopted budget for FY 2018 for the Magistrate Court versus the other courts. Understand, Magistrate Court has 30 judges. Superior Court has 20 judges. Those are full-time judges. State Court has 10 full-time judges. So Magistrate, 9 full-time judges, really 8 because you're counting me, and 22 part-times that help us pick up the slack. What I've given you in the smaller, in the one that has the pie chart on it, is kind of how we got here. So these were our numbers in 2015. And from 2015 to get into the 2018 budget, that's kind of the overview of how we got here. And as taxpayers, you all need to be aware of that. I wanted to give you all a look at what it is we are projecting for 2018. As of August 2018, our numbers, we are currently at 79,000. And again, that is 8 full-time judges, 22 part-time judges, doing the best we can to move this forward. And so while I've talked about kind of our needs and what it is we are doing, I want you to understand that in 2018, we have made some progress. One of the first things that I know you all are very interested in is our misdemeanor mental health court. Yesterday was our first graduation. That was one of the pilot programs that Judge Porter and Judge Porter's in state court, and several of our collaborative partners, including our Solicitor General, our Public Defender's Office, lots of other people joined in to make a possibility. And this year, we had our first graduation yesterday. And so I believe actually one of your judges was present at that, and we were happy to have that happen. The Magistrate Court has KPIs, which are key performance indicators. I'm happy to report that those KPIs are on track. For 2018, we were measuring processing of search and arrest warrants. We were measuring the scheduling of citizen-initiated application hearings. We were also measuring to ensure that we did not have leftover backlog of small claims cases. When I came in, you all may have heard throughout the campaign this year that we closed 30,000 cases that had been open from 2010 to 2015, and the way we closed it was through interns and part-time judges. It was just a matter of figuring it out and scheduling cases that needed to be scheduled, but those were cases that had been left over. 30,000 cases just simply open on a docket because no one had really had the time to clean those. So we wanted to make sure that we are on track with those moving forward. And then our scheduling of our small claims cases, which was part of those backlog cases, those things are happening now within 90 days, which was not happening in the past. We have completed a high volume court simplified grant. That's what we are completing this year. As a matter of fact, that grant ends in November of 2018. Obviously, our community contact has increased. I do a public access on FGTV where it's called the Magistrate Minute, and so we give the public information about Magistrate Court. We have increased access to our housing court. That's a concern for citizens in Atlanta as well as Fulton in the whole. That's our landlord-tenant court. We have a collaboration with with several access to justice partners on the civil side that help us work the housing court. And so it's actually a housing clinic through the Law Center at Georgia State, through Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation, and there is one other partner. That group is housed in the clerk's office, Magistrate Superior Court clerk's office currently, and what they do is provide navigation access for those people. As you all know, landlord-tenant cases move quickly. They are, parties are served, cases are scheduled within 10 days. Parties can be out of their homes within 15 days of actually having been to court. And so it is important that tenants as well as landlords understand what's going on in that process. Currently, we are doing a digital reporting RFP. Our RFP has been completed. Unfortunately, installation has not occurred, and you would think in a county as large as Fulton, we would already have digital reporting. We do not. And that is something we are moving forward with, thankfully. And one of the things that was key for me was to make sure that our website was actually useful. So when I first came in 15, you can take it. When I first came in 15, I actually created the website. And then that website was revamped as a result of the National Center for State Courts, who came and assisted us with our High Volume Court Simplify project. And so now what you will see at www.magistratefulton.org is a much cleaner website with less clicks to get the information that you need to move forward. I've placed up here, I don't see a timer and I apologize, I've placed up here some of our challenges for 2018, which you have heard or you can surmise through what I've said. Basically, we have inadequate administrative staff to support a court that runs 24/7, 365. We have inadequate funding for magistrates to do our general calendar and assist with other people's calendar. We also have inadequate funding. And we are doing the best that we can moving forward. Our goals in 2019 obviously are to increase our administrative staff, to increase the efficiency of our court and our operations, although I believe we are running cleanly and efficiently now. We want to continue our productivity standards, those things we mentioned on our KPI chart. And we also want to continue to assist in reducing the jail population. One of those initiatives, obviously, is the misdemeanor mental health court. Another one of those is to continue to be able to work with state and superior court as we are triaging those cases to the next level. There are some of the innovations that Fulton has done. I will let you all read through them. One of the pushes is the Visual Information Center, which helps both plaintiffs and defendants in our high volume cases understand what those cases are, understand what they need to bring to court. We have staggered our calendars to make it easier. Our landlord-tenant court used to run until 7 or 8 at night. Now we start those calendars 2 days a week at 9 o'clock in 2 separate courtrooms, and we generally try to have all those courts and calendars finished by 5. We are looking, as we move forward in this year and the beginning of next year, on an online mediation system, which will help us have less people coming down to court, help people resolve their matters through the same way they do it for Amazon, the same way they do it on other things, which is on their laptops, on their phones. It's time for Fulton County to move forward in terms of the progress that we do. We're also looking for kiosks to allow us to be able to check in litigants. People get lost in our buildings. I don't know if you all have been over there. People get lost, and as a result of being lost, because our court is so fast moving, cases will get defaulted on, and so people will lose. The only way for us to figure that out is to actually have people check in when you come in, and then our county is working on wayfinding to help people make it to courts on time. I talked about our misdemeanor mental health court. This is something that the county is very proud of. This is something that Judge Porter and I are incredibly excited about. And so you all may know that in 2003, Fulton County had actually had a treatment diversion court. In 2017, Fulton County changed the way that we did behavioral health, which resulted in us losing the treatment diversion court. And so this was an opportunity through a task force that was created with our Superior Court and the other justice partners for us to figure out if there is a misdemeanor version of a mental health court that would work for not just our citizens, but also work for those people sitting in jail. What we have come up with is a court that is a two-touch system. We touch you once in the jail to figure out the best way to release you, if release is appropriate, when release is appropriate, and how we can connect you with services before we release you into the community. And the second part of that is a compliance calendar, which is where you come back and we make sure that we are doing everything we need for the period of time that you are with us. I have our partners who are associated there. You can see that we have behavioral health. We have Rivers Edge, Chris 180, Odyssey Family Counseling, and NAPCare. But we also have our sheriff, pretrial services, probation, our justice partners, obviously the magistrate court judge, our state court judge, our solicitor general, our marshal, our misdemeanor public defender, as well as our clerks of both state court and magistrate court. Those are integral in the support of our misdemeanor mental health court. And yesterday, as I mentioned, we did have graduation. This is, as you can see, the entire team, as well as our graduates. Up in the top corner are our graduates, as well as the physical team that works on us, and we are proud to have graduated. Unless there is a citizens group that is going to do more, there is not a body that makes a report on judges. I do know that Superior Court keeps and tracks its statistics, Magistrate Court keeps and tracks our statistics. I can't tell you, I don't want to be evasive, but I can only tell you.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I saw one of your bullet items was abandoned motor vehicles, and I have no idea how court is involved in an abandoned motor vehicle, and I wonder if you could just elaborate on that a little bit.
I can actually, and so that's on our civil side. Part of our civil jurisdiction is to handle those matters that come in through that system. What that generally is a car that has either been abandoned on the side of the street, a car that has been involved in an accident, and either has been towed from private property, towed from a public road, and that tow company gets permission from the police department or from whatever the entity is that is responsible for that car being on the lot. Those cars, if they are not turned over in a certain amount of time, for instance, you leave your car at a tow lot, you don't come within 15, 20 days to pick it up, they will send you a first letter. That first letter is, hey, I've got your car, come get it. The next letter you will see will be within 30 days, and it says, I've gotten your car, and now I'm about to file a lien on your car in order to get the storage fees and the towing fees. It is the court that handles that portion of that. So there is an affidavit that's filed by the tow company or whatever responsible entity is bringing that car forward requesting a lien. The court will then look at the documentation and make sure that it meets statutory compliance in order for us to actually grant the foreclosure of the lien. So tow companies come and request liens on those vehicles. In the City of Atlanta, there is a City of Atlanta component because the officers have to check that the car is not stolen. They have to check the owner of those cars. So those VINs are run through whichever police department is requesting that tow.
Steve, I'll let you go right after. I just had one quick, I guess, question or statement. Ola was asking how to find out information about the judicial candidates. Can you expound upon the fact that your code of ethics does not allow you to do certain things in running a campaign as opposed to a governor's race or something like that? There's a difference in the judicial system in terms of what you can and cannot do.
And so what we cannot do as people that must come to the bench each day with a fresh look at whatever is looking at, we can't tell you what it is we are going to do given a certain case under certain circumstances, because we don't know. And it's because we need to be able to say, I want to look at all the facts, I want to examine what is before me now. So I can't tell, unlike a governor who can make a stance on, I will only handle these things and this is the way I will handle Delta. That's not something that a judge can say.
Does that help you out a little bit, Ola, in terms of why there isn't that much information out there on the judicial side? They do not run the same way as the other candidates do. Okay, Steve?
Thank you. Over the years, there's been a very, very fast turnaround as far as housing dispossessed goes. And I have a large concern about the future of evictees. There's such a short turnaround time. Is there any kind of program available, any kind of help that people can get other than putting their stuff out on the curb? And then they've got to make a choice. Do they take care of their kids? Do they go to work? Or they look for a place, or maybe there's a place available. The city and of course the whole country is involved with discussions about affordable housing. And this seems to be to dovetail into that.
Steve and all other people that are approached tonight, please identify yourself and state the NPU that you, or the organization you represent.
I am Steve from W.
And so I spoke briefly about our Housing Court Assistance Clinic, which is one of the ways that the Fulton County Magistrate Court is assisting tenants in navigating what is happening. Unfortunately, because we are judges, we cannot provide legal advice. We also cannot temper or change what it is the statute says. And it is true that Georgia is a very landlord-friendly state. It is written that way in the legislature. And so at one point, I realized that we do not provide guidance to landlords. We do provide navigation services to tenants. And I think that if we help landlords become better landlords and we help tenants become better tenants, we would probably be able to mitigate a lot of the evictions that we do. And I don't know if you saw the numbers. Fulton County does about 40,000 evictions. Those are the filings that we receive each year. And that's a lot. That's an absolute lot, and the only way we can assist from a court standpoint is to provide guidance and navigation, and that's what we do.
Thank you. Rashid?
At the risk of maybe beating a dead horse here a little bit, I just want to get a little bit of clarification on what information you have and don't have. One big thing in our MPU is that we do kind of want to know what judges are doing, and a lot of times what that means is we want to know what case, we really want case data. We really want to see how judges are ruling, things along those lines. You say you keep statistics for your court, but I'm just curious as to what statistics you keep. Are there any court records that are available online? Do you have to go to the courthouse to understand how these courts are being disposed or judged? Or sorry if my terminology's off.
And so I'm unsure if you're referring to civil or criminal cases. I do know that for the Fulton County Magistrate Court, we actually have calendars. If you go to our website, you will see that we have calendars for each day. You also have an opportunity to search by case or by case name if you know those parties. That's something that's available on the portal. In terms of criminal cases, we're simply reporting numbers. We're not reporting rulings or how those cases come out, because on the magistrate side, what we do is really triage. We're simply reporting straight numbers and how those numbers are being moved to either state or superior court or moved through state or superior court. It's going to be hard to find a entity that is judicial or that is an administrative portion of the court that is reporting rulings.
Okay.
That's not something that we generally gather.
Okay, so you all don't collect any, or you all don't record the actual decisions that are made in the court.
So no, they're recorded and they are filed in those cases, but in terms of someone going back and looking at those individual cases and saying, today we did six orders that allowed 12 people to go to jail, that's not kind of.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be anything like
Okay.
that, but it sounds like a data may be out there. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, next.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Judge Kirk. How are you doing? I just want to say Judge Kirk is a taskmaster. She
Excuse me, could you
overworks.
state your name and
Gloria Hawkins
organization?
Wynn, NPUY. Judge Kirk is a taskmaster. She was recently elected as, re-elected as chief judge or re-elected in general to the bench. Overwhelmingly so. I had the opportunity of knowing Judge Kirk through the juvenile court. I think when I first met her, she was a child advocate attorney. She was later appointed to a judgeship there, an associate judge, and now we see her as chief judge at Magistrate Court. Specifically, I had the opportunity to work with her on one of the many selfless service projects that she chaired. And it's an annual event where children who are graduating out of foster care are celebrated. It's a huge event where we pour all that we can into these children and pushing them off to their success. She chaired the celebration of excellence. I was the media chair. So that was my first opportunity to know her. What I will say is she's a taskmaster. She spit that out.
Sorry, did you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask her in part two things. If we were able to get a copy of today's presentation other than by going to the site, if it was available for us. Is it available for us? I'm sorry? And I think that was really it. But I just wanted to just sell her to you so that folks will be looking for and supporting her. Because again, she's doing miracles with little or nothing. And I also wanted to tell her Judge Malone appeared recently to train the ACRB board. So yes, good luck.
Thank you. Terry?
Hi, Terry Ross at PUT, and again, I want to applaud Judge Kirk for her Herculean efforts with the magistrate courts, particularly with the mental health segment. That's a big void in our community, and it's important. But my question is, with your appearance here, is there a specific ask or request of this body in support of you and your efforts, or how can we help?
Thank you, and I really came simply for information. You all are Fulton County taxpayers, and I wanted to make sure you were armed with the information. Anyone that is able to assist, obviously with our budget, that would be wonderful. Letters to anyone you would like, calls to anyone you would like, I would not prohibit. But I really just came to give information and let you all know what's going on in Fulton County Magistrate Court.
Okay, I'm going to follow up on Terry's area because I know it's budget season at Fulton County. And I would like to know, or if you could, list the projects that you have set out for budget finance for your court in specific, and how we can help you obtain these things.
So the first thing I'm looking at is our misdemeanor mental health court. In order for that court, like I said, we ran a pilot. In order for that court to stand up and be sustaining, it is going to need a behavioral health coordinator. Right now, that coordination is being done between Judge Porter and I, and we each have caseloads, and we each have, and I have administrative tasks that are required to do. So it needs to be a court administrator specifically for our behavioral health court. The other ask on that court is for a clerk specifically assigned to that court. Our team trains once a month, and in order for us to keep that knowledge and continue to build that team, we need a dedicated clerk to that team. The other piece is a monitoring system that will help us help the participants track themselves as well as help us track them. And so there is a monitoring system that has been used in California. When Kamala Harris was out there, it was a system that they used in California, and that is a system that we are looking to implement here. So our ask specifically for the court is for those three things. Our behavioral health services will continue to come through Fulton County DBHD, which is with River 7365. We are asking for payments specifically for our part-time judges to be able to assist with triaging criminal cases, as well as continue working civil cases for state court. Right now, 3 of the full-time judges in magistrate court sit the non-complex calendar, which is the felony non-complex calendar. These are not, these are your low-level felonies. I don't know how to say that in a better way. These are not murders, these are not armed robberies, but those cases are moved through the felony system by 3 full-time magistrates, which means I do not have the use of those magistrates because they are sitting in another court, and we want to continue to help all the other courts, but as you see, we have enough work to do on our own, and so it's just a matter of opening up funding. One of the other asks that I have been pushing since I have been here is a joint administration and a joint clerk's office. There was a question about whether or why I changed our clerking. It was number 1 to survive, but it's number 2 because it makes sense. If we are all touching the same pieces of paper, it doesn't make sense. I need to switch out people in order to get different people to touch different paper. And what that means specifically is, for instance, when cases come from your jail, your municipal court bindovers, those people go straight to state court. That's a different clerk. When we take cases that come through our jail, they come through the magistrate court. Those clerks touch magistrate paper. Understand that magistrate court is also the same as superior court. So the judge that touches it on the magistrate court side and the clerk that touches it on the magistrate side, the judge that touches it on the superior side, and the judge and the clerk that touches it, same person. So we have a consistent track, magistrate and superior. We do not have a consistent track. So when our judges come to sit state court cases, I now need to change out clerks because those are now different people. In Gwinnett County, there is a joint clerk as well as a joint court administration. That is...
Just to get some FaceTime on TV.
We're running out of time.
We're out of time. Don't have anything to say. But thank you for...
Have you met?
No, we haven't.
You have not met.
But thank you for
Do you have an
inviting us.
expectation to meet?
Definitely.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. Ms. Glover, who is on, the committee with us, will be sending out some information to Steve and I this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay.
At this point, can you name the committee members and who's chairing it? Which we...
That we have not made a decision, but I do know I will not be chairing this year because of, everything that I'm having to do. So it will be between Steve Carr and Ms. Eunice Glover.
Okay. At this point, I'm going to take the liberty to solicit anybody that would like to run for office to send an email to Jennifer Freeman or to APAB, and she will forward it to the committee chair once they are established.
Well, that could be forwarded to me. I'm not sure, Ms. Glover.
Okay. At that point, could you give me the email address that you would like?
My email address is npug74mhj@gmail.com.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Any
You want me to
questions?
repeat it again?
Yes,
npug74mhj@gmail.com.
Thank you. Any questions from the body? Okay. Whoops. Okay. Let's see. Next in line, we have 2019 grant application. Does anybody have any information on that? I do not. Okay. We'll wait for the next month on that one. I believe we went through all of the boards and task force. Go ahead, Terry.
And John can probably confirm this, the deadline is December 11th.
December 7th for grant applications.
Yeah, December 7th is the deadline to get the applications in for each of you.
Yeah, as well as that.
Thank you.
Question? Should I come forward?
yes.
Good morning, Gloria Hawkins, with NPUI. Has the amount changed on those grant applications?
No, ma'am. Still about $4,000 for each NPU, $5,000 for APAP, and any additional new funds will have discretion.
There's some resolution afoot to increase that amount, I've been told.
Yeah, out of APAP.
It has not been passed, so it remains the same because the council has not taken action on that.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Okay, let's see, what else do we have? Upcoming events. I believe this statewide chat is being rescheduled, but I can't confirm that. Please keep that in mind and look for information to be passed on that. If you don't receive a cancellation notice, then it will be as published. 2018 Neighborhood Matters, December 15th. And we have, location is still to be determined. The next executive board meeting is November 11th, 4 to 5, location to be determined. And if I have missed anything up to this point, please speak. I have not. Or maybe I have and nobody, and everybody else missed it.
Just that the deadline for the Neighborhood Matters Awards is November 16th. So all MPUs need to get their nominees in by November 16th.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Terry. Okay. Then we have public comments. We did that. Do we have any more going forward? Okay. MPU monthly activities. Do we have anything to report on that? Ordinances, permits, licenses, zoning, etc. That we have gone through our agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Say move, second, third.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.